So I watched pretty much the entirety of the trial of Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp, and I watched pretty much a lot of videos of reactions and such and aftermath. Uh, I guess I've never made a full reaction of myself, and right now, apparently, there's an interview of Amber Heard on Today's show, and this is, I guess, the first part, not even the entirety of it, but I'm gonna now watch it. So this is a nearly 11 minutes video, and I'm going to basically react because I think it's going to be quite interesting.
It's been about more than a week since the verdict. As you sit here with me now, has it sunk in?
Second, yes.
How could it?
Could it not?
Surreal and
Serious? Okay.
difficult, in part, yes. This has been a long time coming. Do you stand by your testimony and your accusations against Johnny Depp about abuse? Of course, to my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony. The real life drama of the defamation case between Amber Heard and her ex husband Johnny Depp captivated millions of people around the world. Amber Heard just got exposed. Johnny, this is so cringe. With clips spreading across social media like wildfire. I think vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. I think that this trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok, and the jury is not immune to that.
So I'm just looking at the side of her face, and the makeup is kind of brownish. It looks like she was hit.
Jury saw it. How could they not? They're gone amok, and the jury is not immune. Is an example of that wildfire.
Okay.
I think vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. I think that this trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok, and the jury is not immune to that.
So she keeps talking about social media, but social media is not the jury, is not the trial. The jury is in the courthouse. It's not the court. So I mean, she thinks that social media is where the actual trial happens. Well, at least officially, this is not what is happening.
You think the jury saw it? How could they not? I think even the most well-intentioned juror, it would have been impossible to avoid this.
Okay.
People online and crowds outside the courthouse made it clear where they stood. Every single day I passed from 3, 4, sometimes 6 blocks, city blocks lined with people holding signs saying burn the witch, death to Amber. After 3.5 weeks, I took the stand and
Amber Third, that's I guess the most famous one. She misses that out.
saw just a courtroom packed full of Captain Jack Sparrow fans who were vocal, energized. Can you put into words how?
So during the in the courthouse and during the trial, nobody sitting on the gallery area was supposed to say or even make any noise or anything like that. So it's not like during the trial there was an influence, and it's not like the gallery area was packed with Jack and Sparrow costume people or something. They were just regular people. Yeah, so not during the trial. Basically, she's saying that the afterwards is what influenced the jurors. I guess that's her narrative. Yeah.
That felt. This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through. Energized. Can you put into words how that felt? This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through. I have never felt more removed from my own humanity. I felt less than human. Let's go back to the day of the verdict. Were you feeling confident? That's a great question. I wish I could say yes to that. I want to say yes to you, but it wouldn't be true. Even if you think that I'm bottom line, you still couldn't look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation.
Again, so I might be lying, but there's social media. What is the relevance, right? So she keeps saying that social media decides the outcome of my trial or trials or everything. It's like the social media world or the social media god is what determines everything. That's an assumption. And what's the point? Like, did Johnny Depp do all those horrible things to her, or did she defame her? So the whole point of the discussion so far is kind of pointless based on the outcome.
Find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation. Answer, yes. After the 6-week trial, the jury found Heard defamed Depp in a 2018 Washington Post op-ed in which she wrote she was a public figure representing.
Today show doesn't need to tell these. Everybody knows that now.
Depp denied the abuse allegations.
Get to the interview. I don't need to regurgitate the same news that I know so much about.
That verdict came less than 2 years after a judge ruled against Depp in a similar case in the UK, in which he sued a British newspaper that called him a wife beater. There was another trial, dealt with the same substantive issues, that had even more evidence in. In fact, my evidence was largely kept out. Really important pieces of evidence kept out. Done differently, handled differently by a judge instead of a jury. Some evidence is admissible in a UK court that is not admissible in a US court. Do you think that maybe he just had better lawyers? I will say his lawyers did certainly a better job of distracting the jury from the real issues. For some people...
Okay, she didn't say that my lawyers are bad. Okay, that's good. At least she's not putting her lawyers directly under the bus.
They just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that? Absolutely. I would not blame the average person for looking at this and how it's...
That's not true. Anybody who watches or follows this has either one way of opinion or another way of opinion, either Amber Heard supporter or Johnny Depp supporter. I don't think there are a lot of people who are saying that these are just two people who are doing ugly things to each other. Granted that Johnny Depp himself also admits he's not perfect, but it's not like Johnny Depp is putting feces on the bed or beating her or anything like that, at least according to the verdict and the evidence, right? So that question is kind of like the reporter is trying to find some sort of a middle ground type of question.
And not think that it is Hollywood brats at their worst. But what people don't understand is it's actually so much bigger than that. This is not only about our First Amendment rights to speak. But here's the thing about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't protect lies that amount to defamation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the issue in the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. You can't go into... Free speech does not protect you if you go into a crowded theater and you scream fire. We get the concept of free speech from the Greeks. My understanding of what that means is not just the freedom to speak. It's a freedom to speak truth to power.
Okay.
The truth is the word. Yes. And that was the issue. And that's all I spoke. And I spoke it to power, and I paid the price.
Okay, she's still saying the same thing. She's the victim, basically. The problem is she herself said, I never called myself the victim, nor did I pretend to be or claim to be one. She literally said it during the trial. So while she's saying that she's being the one who is getting attacked, she also doesn't actually see her as a victim. So there is a conflict in what she sometimes says and then how she later behaves. So it's not consistent. Nothing is consistent, to be honest, about her.
documents, the deaf lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers.
What? Edward Scissorhands? What does it have anything to do with this? He convinced the world that he is what? What is that? But people believe that Johnny Depp had scissors for hands or what? What is that? What type of reality distortion is that?
I'm the performer. I had listened to weeks.
Johnny Depp is a very good actor, by the way. And no, you're not a good actress. But I mean, I can't believe how she is kind of like deflecting things and making a total different take on reality.
A testimony insinuating that, or saying quite directly that, I'm a terrible actress.
She is.
So I'm a bit confused how I could be both.
The deaf team argued that you.
Yeah, that's the thing. So she's acting, but people can see through her acting, along with her lies. So yeah, she ends up being an actress who can't cry for real, right? So yeah, there's no inconsistency there.
Or the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I know,
Sir,
confused how I could be both.
the deaf team argued that you were the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I never had to instigate it. I responded to it. When you're living in violence and it becomes normal, as I testified to, you have to adapt.
You say you were responding, but there is evidence. There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. They were first leaked online after being edited. What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight. I can't promise you I won't get physical again. I mean, this is in black and white. I understand context. But you're testifying and you're telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the resources that, say, you or I do with the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white, because it's anything but when you're living in it.
But then there are other times, there's another tape where you're taunting him and saying, oh, tell the world, Johnny Depp, I, a man, the victim of domestic violence.
20-second clips or the transcripts of them are not representative of even the 2 hours or the 3 hours that those clips are excerpt from.
Okay, so she's saying that, Johnny Depp beats her for 3 hours, rapes her with bottle and whatnot, and then there's a 20-second discussion where she says she's going to be violent or she's taunting him, telling him the world. So in other words, you only see 20 seconds of me taunting him or like being like the aggressor, but in the remaining 23 hours and 59 minutes and 40 seconds of the day, he's the aggressor. Usual domestic violence cases are kind of one side being the dominant and the violent one, and the other side being the submissive and the victim one. And this reflects to all discussions. So if somebody is violent, if somebody is suppressing you physically and emotionally, you can't even speak against, because there is again a consequence of violence. meaning you say something against your aggressor and the aggressor becomes more aggressive, and then you face consequences. So afterwards, you might not even dare to speak. The way she's acting, the way she's pretending is that I'm just reacting to some aggression, which she's most of the time exposed to, but in reality, it doesn't sound very logical or very realistic of how domestic violence, I assume, works in personal relationships. So, yeah, that's not believable. Again, same thing. Nobody believes her. And I still don't believe her. Yeah.
Could your side have just put the whole 3 hours in then?
I'm not a lawyer, as I testified to. I was talking in those recordings as a person in extreme amount of emotional, psychological, and physical distress.
He
And
says
it's
he
even-
never hit you. Never. Is that a lie?
Yes, it is.
What about the witnesses who said they have seen you instigate physical violence?
I've seen firsthand how people will file rank and support the person they depend on.
Did they all come in and lie in court?
I am not here to call any of his witnesses any names. I'm here to just kind of talk about it from what it felt like for me as a person who sat there.
When I asked his lawyers, why do you think you won? And the answer I got was, because she never took responsibility for anything she did in the marriage.
I did do and say horrible, regrettable things throughout my relationship. I behaved in horrible, almost unrecognizable to myself ways. There's I have so much regret.
She's saying it for the first time, as I recall. So she's saying, I have regret I did horrible things or said horrible things. I think for like the first time. She never, even in this, up to this point in the interview, she never said, yeah, I was to blame for this, I was to blame for that. I made mistakes and I behaved wrong or something. This is like the very first time after pressing so much, she's saying that, oh yeah, I also did horrible things. Really? She never admitted that. She's just bending and trying to kind of absorb the question.
And openly and voluntarily talked about what I did. I talked about the horrible language. I talked about being pushed to the extent where I didn't even know the difference between, right and wrong. I will always
So
continue.
see, that's the thing. You're saying you don't know the difference between right and wrong. That means that you might be also doing wrong things. She never admitted that during the trial. She's saying it like for the first time. I might be right. I don't no longer know the right or wrong. Well, those things are very important and very direction changing statements, right? So, like just facing with the blame of not accepting responsibility ever, is she now responding this way? But she never did until now.
To feel like I was a part of this, like I was the other half of this relationship, because I was. And it was ugly and could be very beautiful. It was very, very toxic. We were awful to each other. I made a lot of.
Okay, so she's admitting that we were awful to each other, meaning she, at least on her part, was awful to Johnny Depp. This is the very first time I'm hearing this. She, I guess, finally has some admission.
A lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes.
Okay, she made
always told
mistakes.
the truth.
Okay, she made a lot of mistakes, but always told the truth.
Lawyers say they plan to appeal that verdict and ask for the notion from her that there was evidence allowed in that UK trial that could have potentially made a difference. Last week, Depp's attorney said here on Today that the evidence presented in the latest trial far exceeded the UK one, 2 different processes, and they believe the jury got it right. We have got a lot more of our conversation to share with you tomorrow morning on Today, including Heard's response to some of the other allegations made about her in court and her answer when I asked how she feels about Johnny Depp now. We've got lots more of that. Our exclusive interview with Amber Heard will also air on a special edition of Dateline. That's Friday night at 8, 7 Central. There was a lot to talk about. And we'll continue the conversation tomorrow.
So enlightening. Yeah, it really was.
Lots to unpack from that.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
So yeah, I mean, this is the end of this part. I wish they just show an uninterrupted interview, and I wished it was a long interview. From the looks of it, it's not a long one, because this is something that is getting still so much attention. So I kind of am surprised that they're keeping it short like this. But anyway, at least we hear from Amber Heard that she has maybe slightly being humbled. She's admitting at least she might have done things wrong as well, right? She never kind of was admissive of anything being wrong on her. Yeah, so it's still, however, the same old, same old. Basically, she's claiming that she told the truth. But at the same time, because she never admitted to doing anything wrong, and now she's admitting that she might have known the boundary between right or wrong, these kind of are in directional conflict in between these statements. So yeah, I was at the beginning of the interview, I like burst out laughed just after seeing her face, and yeah, I believe maybe there is a bit, being humbled in her personality or in her responses, but I still believe that she's acting. And yeah, she's not a very good actress. All right, so I might do maybe another reaction after the second part.